We are finally in a game one of a fresh best of 3. In the top right, it is Spirit playing for Na'Vi. These guys really need to get these clans going. In the bottom left of Hecate, it is Harstem for Shopify Rebellion. I don't know why Gumiho doesn't have a Cloud9 clan or a tag or a name. Spirit doesn't have the Na'Vi one. You might say, oh, it's pretty recent, you know, just give him some time. It's not that difficult. Not that difficult. I actually wonder if there's some reason maybe someone had already taken it way back in the day and you can't duplicate clans. So that's why having the Caster clan that I do is actually like, I'm like the only one on it. Base Trade TV made it and then Rifkin stopped commentating and then like Fear Dragon left it, I guess, at one point. So no one else gets it. No one else gets it, which means that thankfully that one guy that's trying to impersonate me can have the name ZombieGrub for some stupid reason, but can't have the Caster clan. Or if it is just honestly pro gamers not being the quickest to that type of thing sometimes. I don't know. Still a very cool pickup. And then we get to see that eventually, I guess, on the big screen. The international tournaments that are coming up should have the proper teams in that little box they use. That's the only reason the newest overlay has any advantage over this one. Otherwise, the newest overlay with the arrows is bull. Anyway. Factory expand here from Spirit. As I was saying while waiting for the game to start, but if you missed it, Harstem is actually on an incredible loss streak against Spirit. One of the worst that I've seen. I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest here. He's like 16, 0 and 16 in games against Spirit. Now, sometimes that happens, and it's because there was like 3 best of 5s that went really poorly or something. I don't know. Or they play once every 6 months. So it's you know, it's not that bad. This one is one of the most consistent loss streaks I've ever seen. Literally not having won a map against Spirit in 3, 6, 8 series. All played this year. So pretty consistently. In varying tournaments, a couple of them, at least one of them being a best of 5, and that was the most recent regionals in which Spirit got a 3-0. So it's just it's the amount of games in a year, the amount of series, and the fact that not a single game has been won that is a little odd. It's actually pretty surprising because it's not like Harstem has ever been a bad player, even when he's fallen off a little bit, or wasn't in the year of Harstem, or was focusing maybe more on his production, or I don't know. You know, even then he wasn't a bad player. He's never been a bad player. But he has certainly hit bigger highs lately. So I really, really would expect for Harstem not to go down 0-2 this game. But the loss streak that he's on does make me doubt that a little bit. I don't know. I really want to believe. And Harstem is going into some Phoenix play, Phoenix Robo actually, so some kind of safe play. You can move this into an attack if you see an opportunity, but it can often lead to a very defensive style of play. We see Showtime do this a lot as well. Harstem has gotten a couple of really surprising and pleasant to see victories under his belt in the last couple of months. Who was it that he took down? I'm looking at his match history. He actually still plays quite a bit, so there's a lot of like miscellaneous matches that I have to get through, so we'll check in on that in a second. As we do have the Widowmine drop, Phoenix are trying to, I think, scout out the Widowmine drop. Medevac was created, it just wasn't actually dropping the Widowmines. So Harstem finds the Reaper, but if he continues trying to guess where the Medevac is, he might accidentally fly over these Widowmines. That wouldn't be too good. And I wonder if Spirit's actually just going to go for a push. It's kind of dangerous against Phoenix if you do misjudge the situation. Phoenix are great at chasing you down. One Colossus on the natural trope with a shield battery will bop most early game Terran pushes, except maybe a tank push, which Spirit is absolutely not doing, and it is one of the bigger maps in the map pool, too. Let's see, Harstem is able to take down a laser in a PVZ. That's a good result from him. Took a map off of Clem, which I know sounds like I'm just, you know, giving him something, throwing him a bone, but that's always impressive. Clem's TvP is really, really good. Who else did he take down? Got a good PvP versus Skillis. And then... I swear there was, like, a big result for him very recently. He plays so many games. I guess I did not realize just how active Harstem still is. Took a game off of Oliveira. I beat Bunny. Which Bunny's kind of like hit or miss right now, but still. Was able to 2-3 Rainer. That's what I was thinking of. Basically almost win against Rainer, actually, and then kind of flubbed it at the end, unfortunately. So that was the result that I was thinking of. So it's not TvP, but nonetheless, I feel like his performance is striking a little bit harder into the expected winners, I guess. You know, like he's actually making them sweat, obviously. And maybe he'll make a Spirit sweat a little bit here today. The Phoenix did find the eventual Wouldn't Mind drop. It took a long time to get going. It was going to be a distraction tactic more than anything else, I guess. But now it is just the attack from Spirit onto that third base, of which Harstem is getting the defense in the nick of time. Shield Battery will finish with a single Colossus. One Colossus might not be enough, though. No, I think it actually is. I mean, the Marauders were thinking about leading the charge there. But honestly, with the Phoenix being able to pick them up under somewhat safety of the Shield Battery overcharge, and then the Colossus would, as still a lone Colossus, would still be pretty good at killing mostly the Marines. I mean, yeah, that probably wasn't going to work out super well. Another warping could have happened, too. I think that's a good judgment call from Spirit there, not to rush into things and try and win lickety-splits. Harstem actually trying to run after this army a little bit. Needs to be very, very careful about that. Second Colossus is here, and that's making me feel a little more comfortable. Observer checking to see if there's going to be a drop in the top left. There is not yet anyway. And Spirit is just perusing. He's just looking. Went into the shop, and the guy was like, oh, you need any help? And you're like, stop asking me that. I'm just looking. Now I feel pressured to buy something. But Spirit, not feeling pressured, is getting a third CC back at home, transferring off of some Widowmine production. And actually, I wonder if he is going to fully transfer off. Use this as an add-on. Call him an add-on bitch if we're not on official broadcasts. Or just a scout. You know, sometimes they park it over to the right side themselves, like an observer. So far, no defining action in this game. Don't think anyone has gotten a tremendous lead. Harstem has been able to play the defensive macro Phoenix Colossus Protoss style. That can work out wonderfully in these types of games. Never finding an opportunity to, of course, abuse the Colossus push, but he also really, really was not looking to do that. Really a lot of emphasis on getting the economy situated, some decent upgrades as well alongside the Colossus Phoenix, and then making sure he took no damage. So, you know, if he stuck on 3 bases a little bit longer and then maybe actually push off that forge for a while and try to get 3 Colossus as fast as possible, there's a little bullying that can happen with the Colossus range, but this was absolutely not that game. Absolutely not. And Spirit also never made a poor decision as far as overestimating his ability to win, to lose a chunk of units. Both of them have kept all of their army alive. Now, even on the army supply, I mean, really pretty even on the economy. You can see that Spirit, when he's actually muling, even has a superior income. Harstem's 4th base is finished and saturated, so that's just the power of mules. And the situation that, you know, TvP finds itself in. This factory actually ended up doing nothing. It wasn't even an add-on bitch. So, sometimes, you know, it does it for the starport. Maybe it did it for the starport, actually. Maybe I missed it. That's on me. It might have. But there are 2 starports with reactors, so quadruple Viking production, or eventually into Liberators, which I feel like this game might be getting to. By the way, when I was talking about Harstem's loss streak, well, it is an oddity to see such a loss streak, kind of like what I would assume is certainly competitive players against each other. I have no idea how close those games were, if all of those games were actually the closest thing ever down to the wire. I have no idea. But like I was saying, I feel like Harstem is performing a little bit better in the last 2 months specifically, and even though it was only last month that he got 3-0'd by Spirit, things can change in a best of 3. Harstem has certainly situated himself nicely into this macro PVT, finally getting something on the other side of the map as well, because he has been very defensive. I mean, the Phoenix hardly even went across the map. Speaking of the Phoenix, they do get tucked in, pulled into the fight the Vikings with their range, and then over the Marines a little bit. Does end with 3 at Phoenix going down, so that's painful, but since they're both maxed out, it's really not the... It's not the highlight, it's not the focal point anymore. More so the focal point would be the absence of the shield battery and those Vikings just obliterating the Colossus without as much opposition in the air. They were able to focus fire down all the DPS there, all the splash from the Protoss. And that was not a fight. That was not really a fight that was fair for Harstem, and it will not get any fairer. This one Colossus is still alive, and that's some injured bio, but where's the rest of the fodder units for the Protoss? Where are the charge lots coming in? A couple of them still swiping away, but the last Colossus will fall. And I think the Immortal reinforcements will not quite do the trick. Another Immortal is going to pop out, more charge up reinforcements, and the injured bio might have to evacuate, but it did kill a 4th Nexus. Meanwhile, Zealots on top of a not yet planetary 3rd base as well, and things are not as desperate as they seem. That is the SEV count going up there in the workers' loss, not the probes, despite them being pulled into the fight. That is Spirit taking a tremendous amount of economic damage back at home, while not actually killing the Protoss. Hot diggity damn, that was as close as you could really get. I 100% do not blame Spirit for continuing that fight. I thought he had it. The Vikings taking care of the Colossus before the Colossus even really got shots off because they were late to the fight really is a bad start for the Protoss. Sometimes the game-ending start, especially when they aren't yet backed up with disruptors a lot of the time. Maybe some storms, you know, in a couple of different games. Or the Immortals, which the Immortals, you know, they are a nice addition. I do like seeing when the Immortals come in to supplement a Protoss army, but the problem looked like there wasn't enough of them standing on the fight as the fight went, you know? Like, they were still being rallied out, they were being focus fired, they had a lot of their shields popped. I wasn't sure that was going to be enough, but it was. That was also a Spirit having an upgrade lead. His +1 ship weapon's also just finished. Those Vikings would be even more powerful if they were here, but they don't need to be made anymore. Harstem just completely abandoning the Colossus and going pure into the Immortal. I do love seeing still some disruptors. I do think that is necessary, but besides that one point where the Immortals weren't out all together standing to defend the 4th base, I do like Immortals. I do like their inclusion in this army, especially if we do get these upgrades bumped up a little bit. 3-2 on the way for Harstem, as Spirit has yet to be able to afford his 3-3 because losing 30-plus SCVs will do that. Now, Spirit's army is still pretty solid. That's a lot of Marauders, and the EMPs will obliterate the Archon, but he does need to get some real good micro going on here. And that's exactly what he does. There's so many EMPs available. Those Archons would be popped pretty quickly. Same with the Immortal shields. So Spirit's army will hold. Now, the mass Marauder army that he does have would be extremely vulnerable if the Immortals were just able to, you know, be behind Archons, behind charge lots, and get all the shots they would ever want. But that's kind of the trick to it, is that are they getting the shots? Are they standing in a concave, getting as many shots as possible, and not being focus fire down exactly like we see here? That is the trick to it. And they also wanted their upgrades to finally finish up. Finally evening up the upgrades and about to be a little bit ahead as well. Spirit taking the wins where he can find them, chasing after some of the Archons, using the choke to his advantage. But right now it looks like medevac healing might be the current problem. We're coming in here just shy of that +3 attack, so even upgrade. Spirit going to try and micro his way through this, taking out the Zealots, not letting the Immortals get all the shots off. The Zealots coming in from behind, trying to set up a surround, but there is an exit path off to the left side, and Spirit has more reinforcements to scan ahead, reveals a couple disruptors, which he will have to back away from. But perhaps only temporarily. Oh, that was a decent shot. And now with more charge lots coming in, more Immortals standing to fight, Spirit does have to respect that army, especially as that +3 attack did finally finish. Almost an off timing there for Harstem, and now things have, I guess, gotten in his favor. He still has injured, popped shield Immortals that might not want to be alone in this upcoming fight. More charge lots are necessary. Triple Colossus. Not just necessary, but actually a huge boon for Harstem's army. I think that actually stops Spirit from counterattacking at all. He does not have a strong answer to Colossus presence, and 1 would be different. 1 is still something that you might be able to concave on, but 2, and there was a 3rd on the way, not quite popped, that's going to be too much. You need to get back up to those Vikings. You need to have one hell of a concave. But even if you do get one hell of a concave, again, that's where the Immortals really shine through, I think. When they are just allowed to get their shots off in a standstill fight, not one where they're trying to chase after the bio exactly like this. So Vikings are on the way. We got a drop to the top left that Harstem's 5th base deals with quite easily, and I do want to highlight that. Things got really action-packed very quickly, so I couldn't do that. But the 4th base went down for Harstem. He had a 5th finish as that happened. That was also really important for Harstem to be able to play out the late game. Because if he was down to 3 bases but had killed Spirit's SEV line, that still maybe favors the Terran who has mules to drop, right? But actually Harstem just got back to 4 bases against the decimated SEV line of Spirit. But that aside, we got once again the Protoss with the upgrade lead. 3 Colossus not being taken down before they get to laser beam up all of the ground army. The Marauders trying to stand strong, but the Immortals are packing a punch. Disruptors out being thrown out as well. It's carnage as SCVs do get pulled into the fight, but it's carnage that might end in favor of Spirit as the Vikings do land. The Immortal shields get popped. The Disruptors are out of shots. The Zealots are not going to be enough as the Focus Fire goes down on the Immortal. A couple of Phoenix hitting F2'd into this is not, I mean, going to help out a little bit, but not a whole lot, and Spirit will indeed be able to push this attack back, taking the supply lead, yet he still is down on the economy overall. Harstem with 3 more Colossus trying to back things up is going to tap out, and I'm not sure that he had to. He would have been able to once again hold, I believe, on his defense with the shield body overcharge, but then perhaps figuring that the game overall was a loss just because Spirit would have taken back map control and would have had a good economy and maybe would have also been reinforcing with Liberators this next go-around. I can kind of get it, but I do feel like that's absolutely a game that if it was a best-of-7 in a grand finals, you do not leave at that point, you know? But, oof, all right, Harstem almost breaking the loss streak. I thought he was going to do it too, but not quite. So Harstem taps out of a game that, I don't know, maybe wasn't quite done, but he did just lose his army. It's just that it was on Spirit's side of the map, and it was a fairly close army fight. It wasn't like there was 20 Marauders, 10 Medivacs, and 6 Liberators, which, of course, he's not going to win the counterattack. It would have been really close. It would have still been a Slobberknocker, but I think probably what was most on the forefront of Harstem's mind was that he hadn't gotten into the economy as much as he would have liked again, even though the SCVs were pulled into that. Harstem might have scouted that there was a 5th for Spirit as well. And then with that in mind, having to completely back away and lose all the map control because you did lose the fight, albeit very close fight, that's when Liberators can pop up. And if you've lost the map control and Liberators pop up, even if they don't have the range or +2 ship weapons, the same scenario in which Harstem barely defended his 3rd from the initial tug of war that ended with him having to reinforce with 3 Colossus. Well, yeah, even 2 Liberators in there with whatever remnants of the bio, and it's very tough for the Protoss to handle. But as I said, I think the perfect way to put it is that if that was a best-of-7 grand finals, that's not when you tap out. You give it an extra minute or 2. But Harstem wanting to get done with that game, figuring that his chance to actually win was lost. And now we get game number 2, with Harstem still on a loss streak against the Polish Terran. On a factory expand this time, which Spirit used in the last game. Kind of got some shenanigans on Harstem's front going. Didn't do a whole lot, but kind of forced Harstem to respond. Nope, just a 1-Rax expand, which the probe scouts and then dies. That's quite unideal. You absolutely can save that against the Marine opener. This Adept is still going to scout the intention of the factory to transfer over. And you would absolutely believe that intention. The factory's floating. 100% true. So that is a reactored Hellion opener, but is it 4 Hellions? Is a proxy starport. If you do see reactored factory openers, I do feel like scouting around for a proxy Hellion is the way to go. Proxy starport for the Hellions. And that's the Phoenix's job. The Phoenix could easily go over to the right first, and this is a very common spot to see the starport. There is not one. So it would be an easy check, and then you go back to defending what could be a left side attack or a up the middle attack, and it's kind of up the middle a little bit. The Hellions and Marines joining forces. The Hellions should just be able to bypass this. That should be their goal. Nicely done for Harstem to get the 3rd Adept in there for the focus fire. Now, the 2 Hellions were going to 2-shot, which means they probably wouldn't have had a lot of potential, But one Hellion 3-shotting, that's not really all that scary. Especially as the Phoenix were there. And nice save on the Adept at the front, too. Certainly making up for some lackluster probe micro, I suppose. Spirit is really changing things up, though. So he went for the 2 Hellion opener. He got a little distraction going on there. Got a little scouting as well, as he confirmed it is a Phoenix opener. And then he's actually gone over into a Cyclone. I mean, you do need some help for the anti-air against the Phoenix potentially playing aggressive. But then he also went into a Banshee. Now, this Banshee popped and thus far has not been scouted. The Cyclone now positioning itself to stop the starport from being scouted. Harstem just saw the tech lab spinning. He'd know exactly what that meant. But Harstem was a little shy of using his Phoenix super aggressively in the last game. He was like first just sharking around looking for the Reaper and looking for the Widowmine drop and then using them to help his Colossus. And that might be one of the reasons he doesn't try and dive in, but obviously Spirit getting his units in position is really the kicker. And unfortunately, it looks like Harstem's not going to have a particularly good day. One Banshee appears and a probe line is fine. You have a shield battery. You do not have a shield battery. There's one in the natural, but that's still so much lost mining time, and 6 probes is pretty much Gucci for a Banshee with Cloak. You could already feel pretty good about this opener as the Terran. Make it 7, and the second Banshee still having some potential as well, because the shield battery is not in the mineral line in the natural, and the Banshee opener was 100% effective. Yeah, it affects them when they return the cargo. Oh no, what a misclick! No! No, attack the freaking... I mean, the depths can't attack it anyway, but... oh no. That Stalker attacking it appropriately would not have stopped it from killing more probes, but it just is one of those... It gets worse and worse. Oh no. So 12 probes actually still means that resources lost favors Harstem, but it really is the impact of trading out the army and technology for the economy and when that economy is hit too. And that's a pretty early hit on the economy. And the loss of life, the loss of the 2 Banshees, the Marines and the Hellions, is totally worth the trade on the economy. I would say Harstem is still pretty sad that happened. Especially because there is a very realistic chance that he does get a scout on the starport prior to the units being in position. And then he has his Phoenix and Stalkers and shield batteries in position and he takes, you know, like 5 probe worth of damage just because, you know, the timing still would have been maybe a little awkward. The Banshees would have paired up. But it's, you know, far cry from 12. Now, Spirit's main attack is ready to go. Stim combat shields +1, all finishing up as Spirit's army traverses the map. Phoenix trying to get some revenge, trying to find anything they possibly can, and are doing a lot more than last game. They quickly get back on the front after defending the Banshees and have almost grabbed the medevac. That would have been really nice, but grabbing a couple of Marines Marauders is also good. And Harstem is on 3 bases. He did grab that 3rd under the pressure of the Marine Hellion, so that's been done for a while. And the 4th base is now on the way. As you can see, players are now at this point mining out the minerals to the right side as opposed to trying to take the left 4th base, which is a fair distance away. A little bit more of a centralized defense in this case. And then you can also grab the gold a little bit easier. So, and even though Spirit got what he wanted from those Banshees, it wasn't game over, get out of the game, what are you doing? Yo. Wasn't that much damage. And Harstem still has a chance to play out to the 4, even a 5 base situation that we found ourselves in the last game. Still making the right decisions past the Banshee problem. +1 attack is on the way. Charge being chronoed out now. It's not going to need Blink for a while as long as the Phoenix do stay alive, and 7 of them is a healthy number. Spirit not eager to do a push out. Again, misjudging an attack against a Phoenix player is always tricky. You know, that has more punishing possibilities than some other types of armies, I guess. Stalkers also can blink forward and punish, of course, but the most punishing army is Phoenix Charge. And you don't want to lose any units because you weren't quite paying attention, perusing the map, and the Phoenix pick off some units. That would be problematic. Ditto on the Protoss' side, though, which actually did happen last game. Harstem kind of let the Phoenix get sidetracked a little bit too much and lost 3 in the blink of an eye. Not this time around. More ghosts on the way for Spirits as he gets his 4th base started as well. Defends against the Zealot run by, which is a little tickle. Just a little try, you know, like, well, if I could try it now, it might happen, it might work. Yeah, it did not. And Harstem really is totally fine. Past the Banshee problem, he has gotten what he needed as far as the foundations of this game to recover from such a loss, and there was no follow-up that was very swift from Spirit. I mean, he did not figure he had a chance to go across the map and win the game with what would have been 2 Colossus, I believe, and a Shield Body Overcharge. Now, of course, it's 3. Now it's also Harstem trying to get a 5th base, and Harstem with some upgrades, although still out-upgraded by the Terran. Do need to be very careful. One of the issues of the last game, which didn't end up killing Harstem, but nonetheless, I would say is an issue. Oh, those ghosts barely survived. Was that his Colossus died to the Vikings before they ever got a shot off on the army. It was pretty dramatic, and that would have been game over if the Zealots were not chopping up SCVs, I think. The Phoenix just went around the map on all types of paths to find no escape, and all but one have died here, so that's also a problem. Blink is not done. Stalkers went out of the mobility, even though they do currently have the numbers. And so the Vikings will get that chance to, yeah, just focus fire on the Colossus, especially if they get over, like, this pillar or this pillar or something like that. Spirit's 4th base is on the way. Well, he's under attack in the natural, so he is having to deal with that first and foremost. He is thinking about going for an attack, especially as the Colossus look a little vulnerable to the Vikings. No blink, and that just kind of confirmed it right there, with the Stalkers not being able to punish there. The Disruptor pushing the bio back means that the Vikings also have to pull back. They can't just stay over Blinkless Stalkers. They will get destroyed. 6 SCVs went down to the Zealot run by. I think the bigger thing was probably the distraction effect. That's usually the bigger thing, I would say, as far as Zealot run-bys, but last game, it was straight up the damage that they did. Can they do it again as we have another engagement, this time not looking as pretty? The Colossus are going to be alive here, at least 2 of them, and thanks to the Shield Body Overcharge, they will get plenty of shots. The Concave of the Terran is pretty good, but that is a lot of Protoss left over. Overcharge still left over, and more charge lots should be coming in, but the Vikings down on the backside kind of surrounding this army. Overcharge is done with, and Disruptor needs to get a decent shot, or at least push this back. Kind of does both. Where are the charge lots? Well, they're on the side of the map. That is the current problem. That many charge lots right here, right now, would help a lot in defending this gold base, but it looks like the gold base might be a goner. Disruptor is once again going to try and save the day. Oh, geez Louise. Forced to pick up right there, and the Nexus not going to survive. One little Marauder tap. If only the shield barrier was still powered, that could have saved it. The Zealots did not get nearly as much SCV damage done, but in a kind of mirror of the first game, the combined situations, the SCVs dying a little bit to the Zealots, the army once again going, army fight once again going very, very close. I mean, it's like the base died, but then Harstem has the supply lead. Like, it is very close to last game. Upgrade lead currently in favor of Harstem as well, but 2-2 about to finish for Spirit. Where are his ghosts? Where are more Medivacs coming in now? At least the Medivacs are. He's only got 1 ghost to his name, as that is a mostly charge lot-based army there. You want a couple of EMPs. 2-2 will finally finish, though, and that will also help out tremendously against the Zealots. That +2 attack versus their +1 armor works out brilliantly. Liberator range happening in this game, where I don't believe it was ever upgraded in the last. Something that Harstem, again, did not know. So contributing to perhaps a premature tap out. There's one beautiful EMP on the heart of the Zealots, but still so many are left over. Now it's the task of the +2 attack to really do the work. Disruptor is going to push the Terran army from giving chase, if that was even their plan. 5th base on the way for Spirit while he's under the pressure. Harstem's gold base has finished up. His 6th is now on the way, and he is about to even up the upgrades once again. Spirit in some trouble as he is down in the economy a little bit, not by a tremendous amount. But he's also down in the army supply, which is a little scarier, especially as he does not know where the army is. So now he figures it out thanks to the Widow Mine. He'll also get a shot off. It's going to lift his command center. Blink is done. The Stalkers could try and chase after it, but it's more about the main base by the looks of things. Even a couple of Stalkers getting warped in is an odd choice at a 13.5-minute start, but points rather at start. Warp Prism does pick up, injured but alive, and the Stalkers in the main will not do a whole lot more. But it's a distraction, and that Planetary is now the target. SCVs thinking about repairing, decide not to as the Disruptor shoots its shots, and now this 5th base is going to be a replacement for Harstem on the brink of taking this game and finally stopping the record here of Spirit. breaking the curse. He's very close to doing so, but Spirit, not just, you know, maybe a more stubborn Terran, I guess, but in a good way, of course. But he's also just very familiar because he plays out long games, because he does try until the very, very end of the game. He's very familiar with trying to make a game like this, you know, come back for him. So do not count Spirit out yet. He could still be on a 8-9 series win streak, 20-game win streak, or whatever it is at this point. More EMPs coming down. You got the entire Protoss army, except the Disruptors, which means that they're not as vulnerable to being chased down, especially to Marines, which isn't usually the goal there. Marauders slow as duns. One of the reasons you put Marauders on them. Anywho, the Terran army, seeing an opportunity, going to continue trying to push back the Protoss, giving some Spirit some breathing room. It would be really nice to be doing this while you're actually taking a 5th, though. Spirit is okay on the economy, but if he had a 5th, this would still be even in his favor, I would say, because the libs are ready to go with lib range, +2 ship weapons as well, and that means 1 EMP on top of the Stalkers is a one-shot for the Liberators. This is a huge power spike for the Terran. Disruptors trying to save the day, let the Stalkers take down the Liberators, but with so many Liberators in play, 10 of them, even when that appropriate interaction happens, Harstem is still in a lot of trouble. This time, Zealots trying to take care of a planetary by the Lonesome will not be enough. Now they're heading into the Natural, actually just joining up with a base trade as Harstem loses his 3rd, is going to lose his 5th, maybe? Actually, might be able to save on to that, but is now trying to get into primarily the Terran's production line. This is where Harstem has to get going as quickly as possible before more Liberators pop. Fortunately, already with 2 up there, it looks like Harstem is deciding that he cannot break the main base. And if he can't break the main base, this base trade isn't really possible for him. He does not have the ability to recall back home with the Liberators already sieged up on the possible recall. That's why Spirit does this. So he has to just, you know, concede to grabbing the extra bases of the Terran, but that still means that they can float their orbitals. It still means that there's more reinforcements coming in for them, whereas Harstem's reinforcements, I guess some of them could still be warped in at this point. Some gateways are powered, but they are going to eventually be depleted. Harstem's trying to think this one through as logically as possible, so he can't break the main. It's not going to get into a real base race, but he did save his army, and he does have 3 bases off to the side that have yet to die. So he's banking up as much as possible, getting his production back up and running. And also, I think this is really key for a base race. A Dark Shrine, 100% the way to go. But now the problem would be the pylons. That does tend to happen in base races. Spirit still with some reinforcements back at home, able to snipe a Disruptor. We're talking very small moments, meaning a whole heck of a lot. And actually, Spirit is going to be the one that taps out. Harstem did have a 20 supply lead, did have an extra 30 probes, would have had trouble taking down the Liberators, but perhaps with the mobility now being in question, whether Spirit could get a direct fight going. Spirit is the one that taps out in a game that I would again say best of 7 grand finals probably wouldn't, but sees the future going as kind of perfectly as possible for his opponent and maybe imperfectly for him, and decides that's not going to work out. And he might be right about that. He might have also, you know, just ended, he might have lost straight up in that game. But he did have a little bit more mining, a little bit more of that technology to work with, and, you know, Liberators with range harassing the mineral lines is a big problem for a Protoss in that position. So this is why I'm like, I don't know, that was also a game where maybe you could stick in it a little bit longer, but this is great news for Harstem, who really did need, needed that win. Now, ideally, Harstem has never looked at his win record against Spirit, so he hasn't recognized just how badly his loss streak was, but usually players do at least pick up on a problem. They're like, yeah, I feel like I don't do very well against the guy. And then that's where you decide as the interviewer to tell them just how badly they are doing or not. Right now that means that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 series could still be a 9 series loss streak, but 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 17, 18 with game number 1. The 18 loss streak in games finally gonna stop. Best of 3 will continue. In the top left, it is Spirits. In the bottom right of Oceanborn, it is Harstem. And yeah, the mirroring of the mid-game was pretty cute. And then the maybe premature ending is also a mirror of the first game. perhaps a little bit more in the mind games between the two. You know, I really can't say much to it because this happens all the time. You know, like the commentators read into some stats. Literally what happens is we'll be like, you have never won against this guy. And then they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize that. Or just recently last year, I asked Clem, what do you think about your group? Or what do you think about your bracket, whatever it was? And he was like, well, I think I have a trouble against Haas. And I was like, you've like never lost against Haas. The last time you lost against him was back in 2014 or something. And then Clem would be like, oh, okay. Like, I'm trying to say, I have no idea what their personal feelings are on this matchup. There's also ladder to consider. You know, all the times that they're facing each other on ladder. For all I know, that could be even Harstem favored, and it's just the series that go wrong. But it does feel like both of them are ending the games a little differently than if maybe they were facing another Protoss or another Terran. Maybe there is something between these two that's kind of funky. That makes it sound nefarious, but you know what I mean. There's something there as far as the mental game. Thank you, Kiwi, for the gifted sub. But Spirit is going for a kind of proxied barracks. Not really. He wanted Harstem to scout and then have a momentary panic attack. But Harstem is one of the perhaps few Protosses, I would say, who does throw in a no scout occasionally. And that's not just to keep himself blind to the mind games. Because in a weird way, like, he doesn't get mind game now, right? But you do save some minerals as well. While the probe is the most useful harassing tool because it slaps down buildings, doesn't have to build them, it is still a probe away from mining, so kind of perfects your mining a decent amount. But this probe is going to go down regardless of its place back at home, where it's supposed to be safe, damn it. As the Reaper did still pop up a little bit faster. I mean, what is that? Probably probably significantly faster, because it also gets its line across the map and then hops up. Yeah, okay, alright. It doesn't hop up, but you get what I mean. So it's probably significantly faster as far as the Reaper goes, just not totally proxied. Harstem did grab a Stalker already, which is good news for dealing with the bunker. Clearly he saw that building from the get-go, so he knew the intentions. But Spirit, despite pseudo-proxying the barracks, didn't grab a second or third unit. If a second Reaper was here, and then again it was a full-on proxy and a Marine joined up, then this could get really bad for the Protoss. But one Reaper, one SCV that finally does get killed, this is about the maximum you would expect it to do, which, ooh, 2 probes, 3 in total with the first one going down, and the Reaper Scout as well. Okay, it's a little bit more. In fact, Harstem might be a little sad about that, but I think the most important thing with this type of opener is that you do take care of it. You know, it might not be the perfect defense, but you're done with it. You got it over with. Now move on to your thing and focus on your thing. And that was certainly possible with only one Reaper going into that bunker. The Phoenix is going to go for a scout. Very important. Harstem was completely blind otherwise, so to see whether it's a 1-1-1 Widow Mine drop or Hellions backing this up, or a 3-1, which is what it is, that's really important. Now, this 3-1 is not going to be a tank push, like we saw from Dolan a couple of days ago, which actually Harstem did just play Dolan, so he might be a little wary of those builds, because there's no tech lab on the factory. That was 2 Cyclones. That's more on the defensive against Phoenix front. Obviously, a tech lab could be placed, and then tanks could be made, but we still have a delay on that. And there's like no way. Yeah, I was gonna say there's no way this is gonna be a push. It's tankless, so it's definitely not a tank push, but it's not gonna be a push at all. Not until the medevacs are out. And Harstem, I think, is dipping in just to kind of continuously check that. Now he sees the starport, and that's your timing now, mostly, that you have to worry about. There are pre-medevac attacks that people will do. I think Kelazur is particularly fond of them. Getting out in the map, and then if there is an opportunity to strike with Stim, you do it. If not, you wait for medevacs. So the Phoenix, still have to be a little wary of that potential, but usually you see this type of setup, and you know that it's the medevac timing. That's really the most important thing. So Harstem's getting into his 3 base economy again. Phoenix Colossus, it has worked out for him. It worked out in the first game, I would say. And it obviously worked out in the second game because he didn't end up winning it, but both had some complicating factors in there. Both first and second game were not so much about they weren't decided, I should say, with the build openers. There we go. They weren't decided. There was a lot of mid-game, mid-map fights and late-game shenanigans going on. So there you have it. Now, this is not a necessarily pre-medevac push. This is just timing with the medevacs. So this is not exactly what I was talking about. But regardless, the Phoenix would have loved to have found the reinforcing medevacs. Instead, they find 2 Cyclones, which the Cyclones are pretty much dead and gone in this game anyway. But now they truly are. It's more importantly, on the subject of the bio, which do just go without the medevacs. And this is how that can be powerful. And unfortunately, that also might be how Harstem loses this game. The Phoenix not realizing the medevacs were going to successfully get across the map, but then the army would arrive so quickly. Otherwise, the Colossus would have been, I think, safely tucked into the shield battery. Although the third base then would have been a target. That's again where the Phoenix would have loved to have been tracking the army to know if it was going to be from here or from here. With Harstem's loss to the third base, he might just be out of this series. Shield battery overcharge, not going to save the Colossus, and with that last Colossus dead and gone, that is too much damage to recover from. The Phoenix also out of juice, can't pick up the rest of the Marauders, which is him again, so they're getting one-shot by even probes, probably. But this is too much damage. If the third base was still alive because Spirit decided to gung-ho towards the probes, a little ambiguous. But Harstem's third base dying, 2 Colossus dying, and 11 probes dying. He's hit at every single avenue of comeback potential. Phoenix even can't get really any counter-attack because they use so much of their energy in the defense. It really did come down to the Phoenix. The Phoenix, if they had caught the medevacs, they got a lot of power of the push. If they don't catch the medevacs, but it's because they're tracking the army, they're there to lift a couple of key Marauders to save the first Colossus, save the second maybe as well. Yeah, if they saved the first, they would have let the Colossus stand their ground in the natural or the third because they would have seen the bio coming in through the middle. It just would have been so different. Quad Widowmine drop now on the way. The game is not over, but it is just so much to recover from. Again, Harstem was hit at every avenue of comeback potential. The Phoenix were hit to a certain degree, although now they do have energy back. The third Nexus was killed, the probes were killed, the army was killed. The slower building, very expensive army was killed. Whereas the Terran, a little bit easier on the Remax. This is a nice start to a potential comeback. The Phoenix in perfect position to catch the Widowmine thanks to this little probie. Big shout out to the probe. Way to go, little guy. And Harstem is going to be able to get back on the other side of the map with the Phoenix to determine that the army is in fact still home. Harstem has also decided to, I don't know, change things up or stick to his guns. Can't tell you for certain, but he has decided to go into double Stargate Phoenix. Now that +1 flyer... or air, sorry. It's been building for a while. I believe it started before he lost the Colossus, so I'm gonna say that he's sticking to his guns. But this is an interesting way to play out a game in general. It's an interesting way to play out a game where you are kind of making a comeback happen. Spirit's very comfortable now on 3 bases, 6 gases, nothing to worry about on his side of the map, can focus entirely on the attack. And Spirit will have the +1 upgrade on the ground lead. But air did finish for the Phoenix. They do not know about the army placement. Harstem finds it. 3 Colossus. There's a lot to tango with. That ghost animation was so weird. It was in the EMP state, and then it just kind of floated. Anyway. 4th Nexus, I do believe will have to be canceled, but the key thing is that it can be canceled. Oh, let's see if I'm right. It's a little bit of a clumped up army for the Terran, so the Colossus were getting some beautiful shots. The shield battery is available, so that's also good news. And it looks like the Nexus won't have to be canceled. All right, okay, all right. This could still happen for Harstem. He could still be breaking the series loss streak. 1 carrier on the way. 2nd one starts up. Very expensive unit to be producing when you did not have the game of your life. They weren't just happily skipping along on 3 bases this entire time. Spirit gonna stem in here. The disruptors are available, plural. One goes for the shot, second one now gonna go for the shot, and that is so freaking dangerous. But Spirit does actually kill the disruptor, jumps on top of the Colossus, overcharge once again, not gonna be enough to save the day. But now it is all Marauders, which the Phoenix are not gonna get countered, but then they can't pick up that many Marauders, right? That's 18 Marauders. Yeah, no, the Phoenix with the +1 are surprisingly effective, I guess, but yeah, this is gonna be such a not a waste, but it's gonna be so many dead Marauders. They can't counter the army that's killing them currently. That is so funny. Look at the supplies. The Marauders all dying in this eventual trade is significant. Like, do not discount this. 100%. Spirit at the very end there traded out probably 20 plus Marauders for the Nexus and the 3 Colossus, which I would say is still putting him in the lead. Spirit, that is, he's still in the lead, but it did get weird without the ability to save the Marauders, and maybe he could have tried to back away with them. I'm not sure that would have been the better plan. I don't know. Not a situation you find too often. And so now I do believe Spirit still has a better chance to win this game, as his 4th base gets planted and Harstem replaces his own 4th. Because Harstem's, build, it's super expensive. And any loss of life at this point is going to be hugely damaging to him. So one carrier gets target fired down by the Vikings, or all the interceptors die to eventual mass marine. That works out brilliantly for the Terran. But I will say, even amongst the pros, because it is kind of an odd game to play, it's not the first game of its kind that I've seen, but it is still an odder way to play out PvT. Terrans sometimes do mess up against this, because you basically think I've got enough, and then if you misjudge this, it is really punishing. If you don't have enough Marines kill the interceptors, if your Vikings think they can tango with the carriers, but then barely don't kill it because of the overcharge, like this can be screwed up really easily by the Terran, I'd say. A certain surplus of supply will guarantee the Terran's victory. Spirit with a 40 army supply lead is pretty much, I don't worry for him, but only with a 10, 15 army supply lead, I don't know. This could still happen. But Spirit is once again in a very comfortable position. He might have had to take his own time to breathe and replace his army, but he was certainly capable of doing that. Getting a 4th down, getting a 5th now, getting 2-2. And a good amount of Vikings as well. Wouldn't mind helping out there. Marines helping out again against the interceptors and also clearing out the Phoenix. I don't think Harstem can actually push. He's being very aggressive because I think he sees an opportunity on the choke. But the truth is, his carriers are about to be overrun, and that is the problem. The Marines are still alive. The Colossus didn't kill them all, and now the carrier is gunned down, and the interceptor is gunned down, and the capital ships themselves will fall. And Spirit did play that totally fine. GG's. Spirit will still keep his win streak against Harstem, but Harstem at least broke the loss streak. The game loss streak, so that's something.